Peavy, you'd pay to see a man fly, wouldn't you?
Ha! You gotta be out of your mind.
Look, I'm talking about making some real money here, Peavy. Not just $10 a show, but enough to get us back on our feet and into the Nationals.
Your eyes painted on, Clifford. This thing's like strapping nitroglycerin to your back. Besides, the feds are mixed up in this.
I don't want to keep it. I just want to borrow it for a while.
Clifford, when you borrow something, you don't tell nobody. They call that stealing, you know.
Just a couple of weeks. As soon as we can afford a new plane, we'll give it back, I swear.
Clifford, did you see what this thing did back there?
Well, you're always telling me what a genius you are, Peeve. Fix it.
We're gonna need one hell of a lawyer.
I think we're gonna need a helmet.
Hello and welcome to Comic Book Movie Oblivion, the podcast about feature films based on comic books and comic strips that people have stopped talking about. We are your hosts, Jordan and Kumar, that's me.
And me.
And this week we're talking about The Rocketeer from 1991.
1991.
Okay, first pause the podcast.
Oh, I didn't even thought about it.
Really tricky one. I'm gonna...
I think you're alright.
We're gonna spoil it,
Yeah.
definitely. We are gonna. There's plot details if you care. Maybe pause the podcast, I guess, if you've ever thought about watching this movie.
So if you haven't seen it, go
Yeah, I
pause the
guess.
podcast and go and watch it.
Yeah, I don't know
But
if
there
there
is
any
a pretty big surprise at the end, isn't there?
Yes.
Alright, if you haven't seen it, go and watch it.
Yeah.
Because I really like this movie. I'm just going to come out the gate and say that.
Okay. Also, a little bit of housekeeping first. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so first, I'm supposed to say, please rate and review us every episode. Apparently, that's like podcasting protocol.
Oh.
Please rate and review our podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
How does one do that?
You just say, well, I don't know, if whatever whatever you use to listen to your podcasts. By the way, if you use Stitcher, you probably already know. I use Stitcher, and Stitcher is shutting down at the end of next month for no logical reason. I don't know. They're just no more Stitcher. But whatever you use, yeah, I think iTunes is the big one that you really want to review on if you use iTunes.
Well, whatever platform you use,
yes,
and assuming it has a rate and or reviewing function,
yes.
Please make use of one or both.
Yes, and I also want to mention our Facebook page, because now, why are we on Facebook? I'm a middle-aged man. I'm 48 years old. This is my platform of choice.
Yep.
I will say that the Facebook page is super active because the two of us are posting memes on there probably 3 to 4 times a week.
Yeah.
And nobody else is doing anything on there. We had one mistaken guy came in, was looking for some comic book called Oblivion.
And asked if we knew anything about it.
And that was the only other interaction we've had on there. But it's like, I kind of love it. It's a little weird little clubhouse. It's like a treehouse clubhouse is what it's like. It's just two dudes up there.
Yeah.
Making noise. Yeah, so please check
members
that out.
Now,
the other important thing is we have set up a Patreon, and it's patreon.com/comicbookmovieoblivion, no underscores or dashes or anything. And it's a really bad Patreon. There's only one tier. It's like $5 US. And there's no like bonuses or anything if you sign up.
Nope.
All you're doing, it's basically a tip jar.
Yeah.
You don't even need to keep it for more than a month, but we're just like trying to pay the fees, and occasionally we have to import these books from like weird places.
Yep, it's 100% going towards the podcast,
yes,
and not at all going towards the beer that I drink every week.
No. But yeah, so and since the podcasts have been getting longer, I've had to upgrade our Libsyn account.
Right.
From like I was on like the medium size, and then one month I tried to upload an episode. It's like you've used up all your file space because the episodes are going much longer than we anticipated.
So if you're enjoying the length of our podcast, please consider donating.
Yes.
If you don't enjoy the length, don't donate.
I had to go up to the higher grade, so that was like another expense.
Very good.
Of the podcast. Okay, anyway, let's get on to The Rocketeer.
Yes.
By Dave Stevens, who he died in 2008, actually, pretty young. I think
he was 52.
52.
And he died of leukemia, sadly,
right.
with which he'd been struggling for many years, apparently.
Right. So, he started The Rocketeer in 1983. It was a backup feature he had done like 2 6-page shorts for some comic that came out from Pacific.
Star Killer or something along those lines.
Star Slayer, I think, or something like
right.
that. Then Pacific wanted more. He hadn't planned on doing more. He's like, okay, I guess I'll do some more. And he did, like, I think a special for them or something, and then Pacific went under. It got picked up by Eclipse. That was Eclipse's MO, was they often picked up series that were dangling in... look at that.
I've got my hand over the bell.
So Miracle Man, Marvel Man was one of them, definitely. There were a couple, I can't remember off the top of my head, but that was a bit of their strategy, was they would sometimes pick up these series that had been dropped by other publishers for whatever reason. But Eclipse only got out like a little bit before they fell apart.
Before they went under, you might say.
Yes.
Underwater.
Yes. And then it got picked up by Comico. Comico was going to do 3 issues. They got 2 out before they went bankrupt, and then Dark Horse published the 3rd issue. And the trade paperback. So there's actually not that much material out there. There were like 6 issues worth of something. The trade paperback, finally now it's being published by IDW, and it's like 120 pages.
Right, so it's been continued
total
by other writers and artists.
Right, but he was mostly... He was mostly doing covers, like he was doing covers all over the place for...
Yeah. From what I read, there isn't a lot of the original Rocketeer run by Dave Stevens.
Right, yes.
So, and from what I read, it's not just the fact that it had an erratic printing kind of circumstance. Also, Dave Stevens himself apparently didn't really like writing and drawing comics.
He was not confident about his skills as a writer.
Right.
And he was frustrated. He eventually brought in co-writers on the later episodes. You'll notice that there are some other names on there.
Okay.
But he was also frustrated by the publishing. He was trying to publish it with these indie publishers that were, as he said, like when he was at Eclipse, he could not get a hold of... Because it's a 2-man operation, or man and woman is Cat Ironwood, I can't remember who else, Dean Mulaney. But they were like out of convention, so he'd call the office and nobody would know what's going on with the title or whatever.
Yes.
That kind of stuff.
Sure. And he was also apparently quite a busy man, a busy artist, like working in a lot of different artistic
He was doing
fields.
He was doing storyboards for Raiders of the Lost Ark.
That's true, he did. I saw that as well.
But his first job was working on Tarzan with Russ Manning. Like, right out of the gate. Like, how do you... He was not, like, earning his stripes
19 years old?
No, he somehow they met at a party and he somehow convinced...
I read that he found full-time comics work to be a bit of a grind. A lot of repetition.
Yes.
A lot of reworking.
Yeah.
And he just didn't enjoy it that much.
No.
And he also, apparently, I only saw this in one spot in an obituary that I read, but also there was a legal battle apparently in the mid-'80s. You heard about, about this?
So this is a very... So, when the Rocketeer came out, Marvel immediately sued. Because they had a bunch of characters called the Rocketeers, aliens. Like 5 aliens that showed up in an issue of Daredevil in the 70s.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, this is going to cause brand confusion in the marketplace or whatever.
Yeah,
and he thought it was a totally spurious lawsuit. And he fought them on it. He fought them for like a very long time. Harlan Ellison came over to his side and was like, screw you, Marvel. And
Harlan Ellison.
They were, yeah.
Very much this is a CMBO all-star.
Yeah.
We've mentioned Harlan Ellison a couple of times.
Yeah. So he fought them for a very long time, and apparently it was just back and forth for years until Marvel picked up the movie rights, and then all of a sudden, Disney picked up the movie rights, and all of a sudden Marvel backed off.
Yeah.
They were like, okay. Looking at that Disney money coming at them, the Disney lawyers, I guess. Yes, so that was a big, drawn-out, annoying thing for him, but he fought it because he agreed that it was like such a stupid thing for them to be suing over, and it certainly was. And he was even frustrated by the big publishers because DC had hired him to do some covers. Elvira was one of them. These covers are all really iconic and famous. You see them online all the time. Yeah. People are always posting the Dave Stevens covers. They're awesome. And there was another one too, but I can't remember. But anyway, he talked about how he struggled to get payment out of them. Like, it was very hard to... He was constantly calling up, like, where's the check for that cover? Like, that kind of thing. So the Rocketeer was initially just supposed to be 2 6-pagers, which I guess was what he felt was in.
Well, they needed to fill a back kind of issue.
But I think he felt like, as far as his writing skills went, he could handle 2 6-pagers.
Right.
They tried to. Marvel tried to hire him to do some stories for Epic Comics, their creator-owned imprint, or to do some covers while they were suing him. And he was like, I better not. He kind of wanted to, but then his lawyers were like, you better not do those covers.
It is this peak evil empire, isn't it? Marvel in the 80s was so bad.
Yeah. So...
We've talked a bit about that, haven't we?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
In other weeks.
Yeah. So he's a very illustratorly guy. He's like your Hal Foster and your Alex Raymond type of artist. He goes back to that classical style. I guess Mark Schultz is another current guy that was really channeling that vibe. Story-wise, it looks and feels very much like, I guess, Commander Cody was the serial that he was...
Yeah.
Which is, it's basically a guy, the rocket pack and a helmet. It's set in 1938, so you're exactly in that zone. And it's 1980...
Yes. In the interview that I found an interview online, with him from November 2001, in which he literally says, it was my own personal homage to Commander Cody.
Right.
Commando Cody. And all the other serial heroes of that era. I've always been a huge fan of the serials. I loved all those edge-of-your-seat, cliff-hanging chapter plays. Yeah, so much like something like Indiana Jones, which is almost contemporaneous.
Yeah, and Star Wars.
And Star Wars.
Absolutely.
So like George Lucas and Spielberg's work in cinema around the time, Dave Stevens is reviving an art form that he loved from when he was younger.
Absolutely. And I think that 82 is probably like I'm going to say it's the upper limit for what I would call the nostalgia bliss point.
Great.
Because I think, and we'll talk about it a bit when we get to the movies, when it's 10 years later, when you get like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade or Return of the Jedi even, you're no longer in that serial mode. You've forgotten what the thing started out as.
No, it's now
right? It's become a different thing. And in fact, I think that's why I like Force Awakens, because it's very similar to New Hope, and it's at the bliss point. It's like exactly 30 years, almost like to the year, right? That's the window. Once you get past that, if you go to 40 years, I think you're getting too far out. The young people are not nostalgic. Your dads aren't going to take you to see those things.
He's too old now.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, there's certainly, in the comic, there's certainly a lot of references to things.
Yes,
to pulp characters.
And real people.
Comic characters, yes, and real people as well. But, yes, real people, absolutely. So, if we might as well just start going to examples. In the comic, the inventor of the jetpack is not the same as in the film. The inventor of the jetpack shows up.
Yes.
He's not named, but he's supposed to be, I read this online, Doc Savage.
Oh. Wait a second, but isn't there...
There is a reference to Howard Hughes.
There is a reference to Howard Hughes, and did they say he's the creator of the jetpack in the comics?
Not in the comics. No, it's just those two goons work for Howard Hughes. And there's a sort of tongue-in-cheek scene where Peavy accuses them, says he knows who they are.
Right.
And he names them, and he says that they're working for Howard Hughes, and they ask him if he's been reading... He says, I read the papers, and they ask him if he reads the pulp papers, and he goes, no, what are you kidding? I read the newspapers. And I think it's a little tongue-in-cheek reference to how heavily the comic draws on the pulp tradition.
Okay, so when... In Chapter 5, I'm looking at it, when Cliff shows up at the airfield and there's another guy there with a helmet on.
That's Doc Savage.
Got it. Okay, I didn't pick that up.
No, well, he's not named. I would never have got it.
But right, because there's a confusing panel where a couple of people are standing in front of this jet that's about the Locust or whatever that's about to take off.
Yes.
And it's like, they're setting up another plane, and they mentioned that the creator's standing. I'm like, which one of these people in the shot is setting up the plane? It
is a bit confusing.
Yeah.
He, as you mentioned, he wasn't super confident in his writing apparently, and in an interview I read, he just said that he basically wrote it page by page.
Right.
He didn't have any sort of overarching plot in mind,
Right.
really. He just sort of produced it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And of course, his girlfriend Betty is Betty Page.
She's actually called Betty Page, isn't she? Or is she
She's
just
not called Betty. She's called Betty. But
But she's based on Betty Page.
she's based on Betty Page, and it's. I mean, Dave Stevens is kind of credited with bringing Betty Page back into public consciousness.
I also read that,
because she was kind of forgotten, but he was like obsessed with her, and at least obsessed with using her likeness for this character.
Yeah, well, he's supposed to have brought her back into mainstream appeal, and he eventually befriended her.
Yes.
And
That's right, yeah.
And may have had some role in ensuring that she was receiving money,
Right,
royalties, for the many uses to which her likeness was being put
Right.
across the 1980s
Okay.
and 90s.
So there's a thug here who shows up called Lothar in the second half, who
love
looks like
Lothar.
Rondo Hatton, the actor with acromegaly. That
Yes.
guy, yeah.
Yes.
His exact likeness is in here. The second half is really riffing on Freaks. All those characters from Freaks are in it, and Nightmare Alley as well is kind of playing a big part in that. It's all this hodgepodge of all this stuff is in here.
And one more thing. So this is another reference I had to check online. Unlike the Rondo Hatton and the Freaks references, which are right there on the page. The mysterious man in New York who tracks down Lothar.
The boss? You mean the airfield boss is the Shadow,
No.
100%.
Yeah. That's who it is.
But he's not named Lamont Cranston. He's got some other. But
no.
the Shadow himself had a bunch of different names.
You're right. He is the Shadow. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that 100% because he said he had the nose,
secrets.
and then he said, "I know what's in the."
I know what secret is in your heart,
Yes.
sleazy pornographer.
Yes.
So I didn't get it, I must say.
Yeah. No, but when
the
I saw
Shadow's
the
not
nose,
super
I was
well
like, "Oh,
known.
that's cheeky." So, yeah, I don't. It's almost where, but are there like not enough almost? Because it seems like there's like one. No,
Well,
I guess
that's
there's a couple. There's like if we have Doc Savage in the first story arc and Shadow in the second, it seems like. I guess there's all
Doc Savage
these
is
side.
barely in it. He's
that's right.
on it about 3 pages.
Yes.
It's all just nods and winks because this is what's inspiring him to write these stories.
I think you know what Marvel Epic wanted him to ink a Shadow graphic novel for Epic. That's what they were trying to hire him on,
That
and
makes
he
sense.
wanted to do it. And his lawyers were like, "No, don't do
too
it."
Bad. There's
Yeah.
plenty of Art Deco. So he's very plugged in. Apparently, he did another thing that made the release schedule so erratic was that he did a colossal amount of research for every single issue and every single page. He went and looked up fashions. He looked up buildings. He looked up styles. It's very imbued with Art Deco aesthetics, which very much comes over into the film. The Rocketeer himself, his helmet is pure Art Deco.
Absolutely, yeah.
They even say, you look like a hood ornament.
Yes.
And although his flight leathers are, as I understand it, just more or less typical for the period, but the helmet is, and the jet pack, especially in the comic,
Yeah.
it looks like a Buck Rogers kind of...
Even the title, it kind of sells exactly what it is. I think the Rocketeer.
And the art, you did mention the art already, the beautiful illustrative style. It's gorgeous.
Yeah,
It's fantastic.
it really is. And I have to say, we reviewed this book on Deconstructing Comics, the IDW trade paperback, which was recolored by Laura Martin.
Right. I read that.
Probably 10, well, when it came out, so I'm going to say like 10 or 11, 12 years ago, something. And at the time,
2009, yeah.
at the time I was a little bit hard on it because I did feel like the story was low on calories
Yes.
and high on art, which is also true of Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark. Your calories are coming from nostalgia, and I also felt that his character's a bit too posed, like because it was so he has that illustrator style, and he's not really used to doing comics. I felt it was a bit stiff. And now I kind of regret saying those things because actually I really liked it on this read more than I did the first time through.
Well, that's fantastic. I would agree that it is a bit light on plot. It's sometimes hard to know what's going on,
Yeah.
why people are reacting and doing why people are there, what they want. The first few issues, they definitely want the jetpack. There's really 2 kind of stories that occur across. The first one is Cliff finds the jetpack and wants it and wants to keep it. And lots of other people want it. Mobsters, FBI, agents of Howard Hughes, Doc Savage. The second story is the story of the return of Lothar from his past, from when he was in
a carnival.
A carny?
Yeah. Yeah.
He was in a circus with freaks. He indirectly led to the drowning of a midget
Yes.
called Tina,
Yep.
with whom Lothar was in love. And Lothar blames everyone in the carnival for the midget's death, and most especially Cliff, and he's back for revenge.
Yeah.
And that's it, really.
Yeah.
Those are the two stories that we get out of the book. And it is a bit light, and it is a bit confusing, but as you say, the art's great. There's some great lines in it.
I will say that the follow-ups that IDW has done, like they've done like Rocketeer Adventures by other artists and writers. They're all great artists and writers, but they're often like an issue will have 2 or 3 stories in it, and those are really light and fluffy. Those are real empty pastries, are what those are compared to what this is. But maybe it's the little bit in the nature of the beast.
I mean, a lot of the fun comes from seeing these characters popping up.
Yes. Did you have some of those lines that you wanted to?
There's just one which I'll mention now. Which is lamp those gams.
Yeah.
Did you write this down too?
I did write down because there was a lot of good period dialogue, or like seemingly period dialogue.
He did the research. Apparently, he really did. This is a real passion project for him. That's when Betty first shows up, and she's putting on. Well, she's not putting on her stockings. She's swinging her legs out of a car, and she's wearing stockings. And that's a scene which is more or less repeated in the film, I might point out, along with some others. But yes, then some of the men working on the airfield say, "Lamp those gams."
Yeah. Yeah.
What a line. That's the only one that I wanted to mention.
Yes. Yeah, I'm looking at it. Hey, fellows, lamp those gams.
And this is Hold Me Down is the next panel, I think.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Okay, so we've got this guy named Cliff Secord. He works in an air circus or air show of some sort. It's April 1938. At the airfield, there's this diner that's shaped like a big bulldog, like a giant bulldog.
Truth in television, again. These were present in the kind of early days of in the Hollywood Golden Age, in the 1920s and 30s. These diners existed, these gimmicky diners.
Right, okay.
It's not just Australia that has a monopoly on big bananas and big...
Yeah, but you don't eat in the big banana or the big pineapple. You can walk through it, but people are actually sitting down at tables, and it's got doors. You can go in and have a seat and order some food. So Cliff is kind of, right out of the gate, he's very kind to this dog that hangs out, this bulldog that hangs out. He's a bit of a prankster, it seems like, because he's feeding this like jerky to this dog, which makes it fart, which he's not supposed to be doing. But then he like plans to get revenge on the.
He deliberately feeds.
Yeah,
he gets a little kid to feed it jerky.
Yes.
So he make sure you feed it. You take the dog into the diner with you and feed him the jerky. The owner loves that.
Yeah, because she like whacked him on the head, literally with a frying pan when she caught him doing it. So, and then meanwhile, like a page after this, there's some cars crash into the airfield. There's like a car chase, and this guy dumps a package in one of the planes in the hangar.
Yeah, it's the engine.
Yes.
The rocket.
Yes. So
which you wear on your back.
Cliff finds it, and it's a rocket pack.
And instantly he doesn't. There's no prevarication. He doesn't even. It's got plans with it.
Yes.
Because it has plans. He looks at the plans. This happens in a single panel.
Yeah.
He looks at the plans and he says, "Oh wow, you strap it on and fly.
Yeah.
I want this."
Yeah.
He says, "This is the solution to all my woes." Because maybe he has money problems. Doesn't matter. We just know that he's the kind of guy that if a rocket pack falls in his lap, he's gonna keep it and he's gonna use it.
Yeah. So he calls up his buddy Peavy, who's the guy who fixes up the planes, and he's the engineer at the airfield. And he's like, "I want to fly. I'm going to use this thing. I'm going to use it in the show." And Peavy's like, "This is like some stolen goods or something. Like, you can't use this." But he convinces him somehow, and Peavy ends up designing a helmet.
It all happens very quickly.
Oh yeah.
Designs the awesome helmet.
Yeah, this is like in the first 6-pager.
Yes.
This is all happening. He designs a helmet, And
The famous helmet.
yes. And then there's trouble at the current show that's on, where one of the pilots is out of control with his plane or whatever.
Well, it was supposed to be. This is
Oh,
maintained
yes, that's
in the
right.
film. It was supposed to be Cliff, but he's been so busy staying up late, working on the helmet and the
Yeah.
jetpack, that he's missed the time when he's supposed to go up and put on a show at the airfield. So, some old bloke, old drunk, has gone up instead, and he can't fly the plane.
Yeah.
So, and then, ready or not, the Rocketeer has to make his first appearance.
Yes.
Then it's in all the papers, and then you've got all the various interests which I mentioned earlier converging on him trying to get it back.
Well, it ends with him crash landing.
Into some
Like he
boxes.
saves the plane, but then his girlfriend Betty shows up at the base, and we get that scene that we talked about.
Lamp the gams.
Yep. But then he crashes, and it ends with a big giant question mark, as if that's the end. But
Would
then
this have been the 6-page?
yeah, that would have been the second one. That was chapter 2, where he rescues the plane. That's kind of the end of it. But then we get chapter 3 as the series ends up getting.
Yeah, there's some
continued.
time is spent on how the jetpack works. That a little bit of effort is made into explaining how Cliff he controls it. He has to click the switch in various configurations in
Yeah.
order to hover, in order to go fast, in order to slow down,
Yeah.
etc., etc. It's all fine.
Yeah. And
That's all you need.
the fin on the head is like a rudder. That,
Yeah, that also present in the comic. That's right. Yeah.
So once he's crashed, he gets attacked by this guy that's trying to get the rocket pack off of him.
Yeah.
So we've still got these factions that are trying to get it.
Yeah, there's about 4 different groups all trying to get the jetpack.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's Doc Savage himself, there's Howard Hughes's, the men who may or may not be working for Howard Hughes, one of whom is sort of a hulking gorilla, the other is a dandy.
Yeah, but the hulking
a
gorilla.
suit.
Yeah, he's
But the
also a
hulking gorilla is
scientist.
also a
of some sort.
scientist, which
Yeah.
is a fun little thing.
Yeah.
Then there's the FBI, and also the mob. And Germans.
Okay, so this is a good point because I only picked up on 2 factions, which was the FBI and the Germans.
Right.
And I never really picked up on the Doc Savage, or
Well, I had to look
never
it up.
figured out that Howard Hughes was. When
It's
they said
just a bit
I
of
never put it
mention,
together
yeah.
that was another faction.
Yeah. It might have, yes. So they're not working with Doc Savage, I think. They're a separate...
But in the movie too, I got really confused about who's working for who. Whenever anyone showed up, I was like, "Wait, are these working? Who are these guys working for now?" Like, I could not keep it straight.
Good. Okay, no, I felt like the film did a good job of distilling down these various interests.
Okay.
But we can talk about a bit
Yes.
more about that when we get
Yes.
to the movie. Anything else about the comic?
Well, yeah. So he ends up. I like how he crashes a lot. He's really banged up. It's not like easy. Like he flies the thing and it works great. But then he crashes. He breaks ribs. He has trouble breathing. All that kind of stuff. There's another exciting rescue when he's with this locust plane. That's again. It seems to be this locust.
The Nazis have
This
hijacked
plane,
that
this,
as well.
this prototype plane has been hijacked by Nazis,
Yeah.
and it's not related to the rocket pack. That
No.
was like a thing that was like, wait a second, this is not related. So
No,
Cliff
so
just
they're
shows up
another
and-
group of Nazis who are going for a completely different target.
Yes.
That's when Doc Savage shows up and says, "You have to hand over my jetpack right now because I need to stop the Nazis from making off with this experimental aeroplane."
Yes.
And Cliff refuses to hand it over
Yeah.
and goes after it, but runs out of fuel.
So Betty is a model, and she's been hanging out with this European guy, which makes Cliff insanely jealous.
Yes.
And but it's not really. It wasn't clear to me
he's-
like what Betty's feelings were about this, because sometimes she's like, "You need to stop worrying," but then she's like, "Okay, I'm leaving to Europe with this guy."
Yeah.
She's going to New York, and then she's gonna
She's
get.
not very fleshed out, at least personality-wise, in the
No,
comics.
no.
But she is quite fleshed out physically.
Oh yeah,
Because there's a scene where, to distract the Howard Hughes' goons, Cliff sends them to her apartment,
instead of his own,
Instead of his own,
where the rocket pack is.
where she's working with the sleazy photographer who's absolutely trying to seduce her. It's
Yeah.
established because the Shadow knows.
Yeah, that's right.
Incidentally, there's a funny panel a few pages before that where she says, she calls Cliff and he says, "Come on out to the airfield and watch me do, etc." She says, "I can't. I'm tied up this afternoon."
Yeah.
And of course, Betty Page is famous for doing bondage photography.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just wanted to mention that a little bit. I also want to mention that there's at one stage when he's in the hospital, I can't remember. I think it's after the Locust crash. He's really beat up after the Locust crash. He calls up and the phone is answered by this mammy type maid, and it bothered me so much because it was like, okay, you're too deep into your nostalgia here, Dave. Like, you got to pull back for a couple of things. Yeah. So then so she goes off. Oh yeah, and like another thing about the writing, like this. So that scene we talked about where she's posing with that photographer and we get a full page splash when they break through. So that gorilla thug breaks through the door. But later on, when Cliff's in the hospital, gorilla thug can't get in to the hospital room as Cliff's escaping. So there's kind of stuff like that. There's like inconsistently little bits and pieces like that.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. It has trouble keeping things straight.
Yes. So then Betty goes
I actually read in the interview that he'd... Sorry to interrupt. But he'd... when they were reprinting them, he'd thought about going back in and fixing some of the inconsistencies. And he said that he tried a bit. He wrote a few bridge panels, a few bridge pages. He added those initial pages at the start to kind of... The ones where he's feeding the dog, to kind of give it a more of a sense of Cliff's personality. But he said there's only so much he could do before he would have to rewrite the whole thing. Yeah. So he acknowledged that it was a bit messy.
Yeah. So Betty goes to New York with the sleazy photographer, and Cliff's like, I gotta go there.
He's determined to win her back.
Yes.
And then when he arrives, he gets caught up in... Because Lothar's there as well, and that's when he gets caught
Yes, and then when he finds Betty in a restaurant with her Hollywood types, he dumps her. He's like, we're done. I'm like, wait a second. This is not... Didn't you fly all the way out here? Anyway.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
So he gets out there with the rocket pack. He's all bandaged up. He's a mess. Yeah, he finds her in a bar. They get in a fight. He's got a friend in New York he is another pilot, and he works for this guy that is the Shadow. Not Lamont Cranston, the Shadow, just the another identity, Shadow. Then he decides to split up with her because she's hanging out with Hollywood types. And then he has to deal with this. Lothar is killing off all the old carnies.
Yep.
Yeah. And then we have a big fight with Lothar.
Rondo Hatton drowns... Rondo Hatton.
Yeah.
Lothar drowns him.
Yeah.
And I was waiting for it to say... Because Cliff's gimmick, when he was a member of the carnival, was that he could hold his breath for a long time. And he would pretend to be drowned.
Yeah.
While Lothar held up a big hourglass that showed how much air he had left.
Right.
So Lothar, for some reason, drowns Cliff.
Yeah.
To take him out, and I kept waiting.
Yeah.
I kept waiting for it. Like, why would Lothar try to drown him? That was literally was his bit. That's how he's. But he comes out of a pipe.
Yeah.
It's very annoying.
You're right. It's like he missed his own setup. Yeah.
Lothar dies in a fire, which coincidentally how he expires in the film as well.
Yeah, there's this amazing there's an amazing image in here of the Rocketeer like standing on these steps. It's used on the cover of the IDW
with the Art Deco kind of framing.
with a fire behind him, but his mask has been shattered this whole storyline except in this panel. It's magically fixed. So I wonder if he like drew it first or something.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So then somehow he beats Lothar. Lothar burns up in the fire. He falls into the flames. Yeah. Then Cliff
goes home and Betty shows up.
And
that's the final panel. Her looking gorgeous in completely period inappropriate attire.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And it's a pretty good comic. One piece of trivia before we move on. Cliff is based on Dave Stevens himself.
Yes.
Dave Stevens apparently quite a good-looking bloke.
Yeah.
He would draw himself in the mirror.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I believe it.
He said in the interview he said it was because he was pressed for time.
Yeah.
I wonder.
Yeah, I did notice that he looked like Dave Stevens from the few pictures I've seen of him. Okay, so now we get to this movie.
Ah, man.
1991 from Disney. Now, I was expecting. I knew it was produced by Disney, but I was like, okay, it's going to be like Touchstone or something. It's going to be some house. No, it's just Walt Disney Pictures in the credits. It was okay.
We'll come back to. I may as well mention it now. It was released as Touchstone overseas.
Ah, okay.
Internationally.
Interesting.
Well, because by that point the film was not doing so well,
Right.
and they wanted to attract a more mature audience.
Ah, okay.
From what I understand, Disney maybe wanted to sell toys. Well,
Okay.
look, the reason this film is made is because of Batman. We are once again finding ourselves right within the shadow of Batman.
Apparently, he sold the rights like right out of the gate. Like with 82 or 83, he had sold the movie. The movie rights were out there.
Yes.
So it takes until Batman comes out. Yeah. It's not getting made. Yes. But I also feel it's very so. It's not just the success of Batman. It's the Art Deco of Batman.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
It's that. But I think Batman is very different from this and The Shadow and The Phantom and Dick Tracy, which are all those movies are. All those four are trying to be period movies.
Yes.
But I think we're 10 years past the bliss point for any of those to be really successful. Whereas Batman 89 is this whole mix-up of...
It's a misunderstanding possibly of what made Batman 89 successful.
Yeah.
They are thinking, we just need a film that is set in the 30s.
And based on a comic book.
Based on a comic book, set in the 30s, and having as you say, an aesthetic characteristic of the period, in this case Art Deco, and also a kind of noir-esque style, because we have mobsters.
Yes.
They're kind of flamboyant mobsters, but they're there nonetheless. You know, G-men.
Yeah.
Model T Fords driving around.
Yeah.
Quite a bit of it set at night.
Yep.
I think they're saying this is how you make a blockbuster, but of course, well, there are other elements, naturally. They wanted to sell toys, apparently.
Right.
So
that's
they were hoping...
interesting, because I don't remember ever seeing a single Rocketeer toy of any sort.
No. Stevens himself said that once the film wasn't doing well, they just gave up.
Right.
And just shoved it all in warehouses or shoved it out to dollar stores or what have you.
Okay. So directed by Joe Johnston, who went on to direct the first Captain America movie, which is also the same thing.
Yes.
It's like World War II.
Yes. Well, Joe Johnston is nerd royalty.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
But he won an Oscar for the visual effects work he did on Raiders, on which Dave Stewart also worked.
Right.
Doing storyboards. He's also he designed Boba Fett's armor and AT-ATs.
Oh, I didn't know
what
that.
I read.
Okay.
And there's some... It's general wisdom, sort of accepted wisdom, that his work on this film is what got him Captain America: The First Avenger, because they're so kind of similar.
They are very similar, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Billy Campbell, or Bill Campbell as he's billed in this movie, plays Cliff.
Yep.
Would be in Bram Stoker's Dracula the next year, 92.
Oh, yeah, right.
It's Quincy, right? And I still can't put it together, because in this he looks 20, and in Dracula looks 30. So, I don't know, it's just that big drooping mustache.
Perhaps it's what one reviewer called the Brendan Fraser hair drapes.
Yeah. 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 Jennifer Connelly is Jenny in this.
They deliberate because of the because it's a Disney film, because it's being released as PG under the mainstream Disney label. They don't want the sexualization of Betty Page associated with it.
Well,
and also,
wait a second. I don't know if we ever heard Jenny's last name. Why not just? I don't. No.
Also,
I don't think anybody knows who Betty Page is. Very few people, even after this.
There was a resursance occurring, as we've discussed.
So any
Disney,
character named Betty in a movie is going to be associated with Betty Page?
No, it's because in the comic she was unambiguously based on Betty Page.
Right.
And apparently Disney shied away from having a character that was so linked to an actual living person, because Betty Page was still alive at this point.
Okay.
But she only died. She died in the early 21st century at the age of 85.
You wouldn't, if Jennifer Connelly was playing a woman named Betty in a movie, I wouldn't think, boy, she's Betty Page. You know what I mean?
This is what producers do.
Yes, you're right.
They look for problems.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Alan Arkin is in it as Peavy.
Yes.
R.I.P.
He's great.
He's really great in it.
And comic book movie Oblivion all-star Timothy Dalton, who has now been
Yes.
in 3 movies that we've looked at.
Yes.
Brenda Starr, Flash Gordon,
Yeah.
and now the Rocketeer.
Yeah. So 100%. That's a hat trick. I will say also apparently Clint Howard is in this as one of the thugs, and doesn't have any lines. And I googled it, and I did see.
You mean Dave Stevens?
No, Clint Howard.
Oh, Clint Howard. Okay, all right.
Yeah, from who was in Barbed Wire
Yeah.
a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
He's like one of the thugs. I don't think he has any lines, or if he had lines, they were cut. I'm not sure. Or maybe he says stuff and it's just not. It's just like get over there or whatever. But I didn't. I was like, as I was looking at the cast list, I was like, what? And then I googled it, and yeah, I did see a picture where he's one of these thugs.
Why would you cast Clint Howard in your movie and just have him in the background?
I have a feeling he must have had lines that were cut.
Oh, that were cut, of course.
Yeah, that's my guess.
Of course. Dave Stevens has a cameo though.
Oh, does he?
He's in the some of the Nazi captured footage. He plays the ill-fated German Rocketeer whose jetpack explodes.
Oh, okay, interesting. He is listed as a co-producer on this. So
apparently, he spent a lot of time on set.
Right. Okay.
He was there every day. He said.
Okay.
And he believes that he had an impact on the way the film turned out, which we can talk a little bit more about when we get to discussion of it as an adaptation.
Right.
But while we're talking about people that were cast in the film, this film is something of a Deep Space Nine reunion.
Oh,
or
yeah.
should I say pre-union?
Yes. Yep. I did notice that too.
One of the gangsters, the one that's folded in half by Lothar
Yeah.
in the hospital,
Max Kredenchik.
is Max Kredenchik, who played
Yeah.
Rom.
Yeah.
And Lothar himself.
Yeah. Tiny
is
Ron.
Tiny Ron Taylor.
Yeah.
Who played Grand Nagus Zex Mater D. His enormous...
I think he's been in a few Star Trek roles.
He has, but this is the one...
Yes.
We were talking about Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
But yes, he plays Mahadu, I believe his name is.
Okay, I don't remember.
The enormous valet
Yeah.
to the Grand Nagus of the Ferengi.
Right.
Anyway, that's enough Star Trek. Very much not on topic, although it is
So
nerd
it
stuff.
opens with a test flight of... what was this thing called? The GB or the B...
GB. GB.
GB, opposite of BGs, yes. GB. So they've got this little... So one thing I want to say, right at the gate, opening scenes, I was shocked by how beautiful this movie was.
Yeah.
In terms of the production, like, you could tell it was Disney money was in this thing.
Yeah.
And even the flight effects, which is like, oh my god, these are going to be terrible. The rocket pack effects, I thought this is going to look really bad. 1991, it looks great. All that stuff, I was amazed.
This is a very good looking film.
Really looks like authentically like a dude flying around in a jetpack.
Yes, absolutely. And right out as you say, right out the gate, the music is beautiful right out the gate. James Horner is the composer. And I love the opening shot with the doors opening. So we have the title, The Rocketeer, in a lovely Art Deco font. And then we have an effect where the blackness recedes and it's 2 men pulling open a hangar door. And we emerge into the sunlight as the...
Yeah. I actually felt the music was a little bit standard.
No, I think it's really good. Yeah, I think it's a great theme.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe
James
the
Horner, of
theme
course.
itself is, like, the main theme itself is good, but, like, throughout I felt like it was just there. And I felt like I wasn't really punching up the action as much as it should have been. But anyway.
Well, I have a problem with the action too, but I don't have a problem with the music.
Okay.
And of course, James Horner, if we can cram in one last Star Trek reference.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Wrath of Khan, best cinema soundtrack.
Okay.
There is.
I'm going to disagree with that if we ever get around to Conan the Barbarian. But
will.
Okay, so it opens with so we've got the test flight of this thing, and the flight looks amazing. I was like, this is going to be bad. It was so good. But then the chase is the chase of the Nazis carrying the bag.
No, these are mobsters.
Mobsters, yeah. So it's it's two parties. Mobsters and the FBI or whatever are chasing it. That's kind of the plane's actually flying over them. These are like separate scenes in the comic.
But they've conflated them. No, anyway, there's no test flight. He just finds
they very smartly conflated these because his plane actually gets hit by bullets by crossfire, and he crashes.
The mobsters see the plane and just shoot at it.
That's right.
They must assume it's law
they
enforcement
assume
because
that's
they're being
right.
chased.
That's
They're being chased by
right.
FBI and they're being chased by regular cops.
Yeah.
The regular cops get run off the road at some point, and there's an ongoing firefight between the mobsters and the FBI G-men.
Right.
They're shooting. They're exchanging tense dialogue.
Yeah.
There's a mobster sitting in the back of the mobster's car with a Tommy gun, firing shots at the FBI, and then unfortunately Cliff in his GB, his stubby little aeroplane, his stunt plane, comes flying over at exactly the inopportune moment. The mobsters must assume that it's another that he's after them as well.
I think there's a line about
And,
it in there. Yeah.
well, I don't think there is. I think it's just there's some good visual
Okay.
storytelling in
Okay.
this scene. Some really good visual storytelling. Although there is quite a lot of dialogue. I don't know how they'd hear one another over the.
No.
But anyway, he just looks up and he just shoots at it. Sort of clips the engine.
Yeah.
And then we start having trouble. It's great. We can see oil. It sputters.
Yes.
Smoke starts
Yeah.
coming out of the
Yeah.
plane. This is a real plane that's flying around.
Yeah. Yeah.
And oil starts to come out of the engine. It goes all over the windshield. He's in this tiny little compartment,
Yeah.
pilot seat, with one of those, it's glass or perspex hoods that's gone over the top,
Yes.
so it's just his head poking out.
Yeah.
There's oil all over it. He has to smash it open
Yeah.
with his fist. It's all some really good kind of shots.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the mobsters have managed to evade the FBI momentarily and have driven into the hangar.
Yeah.
One of the mobsters is dead. Rom is still alive.
Yeah.
He gets out and, in a moment of inspiration, takes the jetpack out of the fancy case, which says, authorized users only or something
Yeah.
on it. Hides it in a dusty old plane that's sitting
Yeah.
in there, and finds a vacuum cleaner.
Yes. This was actually smarter than the comic,
Yes.
I thought, at this moment.
Yes.
Actually swap it around
Yes.
so that when the cops get there, they actually find a thing,
Yeah.
which is the vacuum cleaner. They think they've recovered the rocket pack.
Some good writing.
Yeah.
Do you want to continue on?
No, you've actually got better track of this, because I've already gotten so much of it confused.
No problem. So what happens now is he then leaves the hangar.
Well,
he engineers a big crash. This is the mobster. This guy's really quick thinking.
Yeah.
He's really fast on his feet. He drives his car straight at a petrol tanker or a gasoline
It says
tank.
gas. It's a huge thing that says gas on the side.
He drives his car straight at it and then jumps out of it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the car also clips Cliff,
Yes.
who's coming in for a landing, and completely totals the plane. The car goes on, hits the gas tank, it goes up, boom, in a big explosion. So now the evidence has been sufficiently erased or obscured that the FBI don't know that what they find in the burnt out wreckage of the car is not the jetpack.
Okay, right. Now, all the dudes at the engineers at the airfield are like, you ruined our plane.
Yeah.
And they say, we worked 3 years on that, and they also say, we made our living with that plane. That
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense. How could they make their living on it if it had gone its first test flight today?
Yeah. Well, they sunk all their money into it.
Yes. But that's fine, but they didn't make their living off that plane.
Well,
they were
maybe
going
they
to.
were going to make their living on it.
They were hoping
because it was its maiden flight, wasn't it? You're right.
Yeah.
Not the last era.
Yeah. So, okay, and now at this point we find out that, or the bad guys, Timothy Dalton, who's playing an Errol Flynn
Yes.
type.
Great. Not in the comics, but perfect for
Yes, that's right. A new character.
Perfect for the
named
setting.
Neville Sinclair.
Yes.
He's an Errol Flynn type. He
he's literally Errol Flynn.
he is. In fact, he seems to be filming Adventures of Robin Hood.
Yes. Except he's
Which was like the best, like the awesomest.
he has the Errol Flynn mustache. The only
Yes.
difference, he's called Neville Sinclair. He's from Britain. Well, is he from Britain? He's apparently British instead of Australian, but of course he's not really British. Spoilers.
Yes, yeah. So, and Paul Sorvino is the gangster, a bit of a typecast role, but he's very good in it because he's Paul Sorvino.
Valentine is his surname.
Yes, is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
So, how did they know that the rocket pack was still out there to be found?
They
'Cause
don't know anything yet.
Don't they?
No, because
he still wants...
Wilma.
Neville Sinclair has hired these gangsters to get the rocket pack.
Yes.
He won't say why. He says, I want that rocket pack. And they're like, well, it's...
I hear what you're saying, but it makes sense because Wilma has been taken into custody, and there's a 24-hour guard.
Wilmer's the gangster. The
Wilma
Rom.
is Rom.
Rom.
Yeah, so he's been taken into custody. He's in hospital.
Yeah.
And the mobsters can't speak to him.
Yeah.
And of course, no mobile phones, so he couldn't tell them what was going on. So at the moment, the gangsters and Sinclair are operating in total ignorance. For all they know...
Sinclair, Timothy Dalton, offers them 3 times the pay to get the rocket pack. Mm-hmm. But as far as he knows, the rocket pack was destroyed in the suitcase.
I think
and
they
was
don't know
taken by the
Do they know
FBI.
about that? I don't think they know anything about it. I think they just think it's still missing.
Where would they think it is?
They
Why
don't
would
know.
they...
They don't know. The cops aren't telling them that they found a burned out vacuum cleaner. They don't know anything.
Because then they show up, then Paul Sorvino shows up at the airfield during an air show, and he has his men search the grounds twice, because they're assuming it's
Because Lothar... Okay, you've lost...
Oh, is that...
okay.
Okay.
It's okay. I'll explain.
Is that after the Lothar stuff?
It is after the Lothar stuff. So what happens is, in this scene, great scene where Timothy Dalton's prancing around swinging a foil, a rapier.
Yeah.
So good. And sweating. He says... look, find that damn jetpack. You had it, you lost it, get it back, I'll pay you I'll pay you double. And he says, you better pay me triple. Whatever. He's a rich movie star.
Yeah.
But he also asks what room is Wilma in at the hospital? And Valentine laughs and says, what are you going to do? You're going to walk in with a bouquet of posies, tell him he's getting a visit from the top movie star? And, they ha 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 ha, and they just laugh, and Timothy Dalton cracks it and swipes his blossom out of his flower out of his buttonhole. But what happens is he calls up his henchman.
Yeah.
In the next scene.
Right.
I absolutely love Lothar.
Yeah.
I think he's my favourite character.
Yeah.
In the film. That's saying something because there's some cool characters in this movie. He's listening to Beethoven, is it? I think.
Yeah.
We don't see his face.
No, it's a long time before we see his
enormous hand pick up the phone and say, yes. And Timothy Dalton says, Lothar, I have another job for you. And he says, go to the hospital, find out where the rocket is. So that's what he does. He goes to the hospital, he climbs in through the window, and he's dressed in the same way that Rondo Hatton is in his most famous role. So the film goes a step further.
Yeah, right.
In the comic, he's just based on his appearance, like his physical appearance.
Yeah.
In the film, he's wearing the same outfit, which is a kind of low, wide-brimmed hat.
Yeah.
And a black suit.
Yeah.
Which is what he wore in this film where he played a villain called the Creeper.
Right.
And it's so great. He first he blocks the door with a chair, then he wakes up Wilma/Rom and says, "Where is it?"
Yeah.
And then we see his face because he lights a match.
Yeah.
And his face is horrible. Looks great.
Yes, they've done the full makeup to make him look like Ron.
He looks exactly like. It looks good. It looks great. He looks scary.
Yeah.
Wilma refused to tell him. Then he starts laughing and shaking him because he's in traction, so he's in pain. He goes, "All right, I'll tell you. I got a really great idea. I did a great job. I hid it in this hangar, in this old plane." And then Lothar folds him in half.
Right. Yes, this turns out to be his MO. He does it again and again. His strategy is folding
He
people in
folds
half.
people in half. That's how he murders them.
Yeah.
So great.
Yeah.
And then when the guard outside of the hospital room breaks in, he leaves through the window, and then he very daintily shuffles away along the window ledge. That's the last...
Yeah.
That's how that scene ends, with his enormous feet on this window ledge, kind of shuffling away from the window. I love it. Great scene. I love everything about it.
Yeah. Yes, you're right. I just found the lines about... so they don't know what happened to the rocket. You're right. Because the line is... Paul Sorvino says, why is this merchandise so important to the feds? And they're like, what is it? And he says, it's a rocket.
Yeah.
is what he says.
Yes.
And then Servino says rocket. He says, and then Dalton says, yeah, like in the comic books.
Oh, so good. There's another line which I specifically wrote down, which almost just before the end of the scene, which is where Servino says, "What does a movie star need a rocket for anyway?" Just as he's walking out. Great bit of foreshadowing.
Yes.
What does a movie star need a rocket for?
Yes.
There's another line earlier which I also wrote down, which is Cliff Secord says, which he says, "I could fly a shoebox if it had wings."
Yeah, right.
When they're talking about him getting back up in the crusty old plane, which is how they find the jetpack. So we've got two. I love it when a single line of dialogue establishes something important. We established that Secord can fly anything, even a jetpack that he's never seen before. And Timothy Dalton, there's a mystery there.
Yes, absolutely. So they find the rocket pack, as you mentioned, hidden in the cockpit of this other plane. Interestingly, Peavy's into it right away. As an engineer, he's very excited by it. Even though later on he's like, actually, this is stolen goods and we should return it, which is what it's like in the comic. In the comic, Cliff is constantly saying, I swear I'm going to return the thing, and then he doesn't. He's like, no, I got to use it again. Which kind of happens in the movie too.
Yeah.
But initially, he's a bit more like, what is this? And then they figure out that it's a rocket pack they pressed the button by accident or something. I can't remember how they figured out that it was...
Yeah, Cliff just presses by accident and it rockets around the hangar, bouncing off surfaces and everything.
Yes. But Peavy's very excited by this marvel of engineering.
Just by smelling, he can tell what fuel it runs off.
Yes.
He knows why it doesn't get hot. He knows what kind of fuel injection system it uses, etc., because he's a mechanical genius.
Yeah. We get some scenes in the diner. I wanted to mention this because when they were in there, I was like, oh yeah, of course they didn't do the giant dog. And then they had the exterior shot, and it was a giant dog.
Yes, it was.
I was like, wow, they really did it. So, coincidentally, so Jenny is an actress. She's not a model in this version. Oh, by the way, we didn't mention that, so Billy Campbell is going to be in another comic book movie that we'll be talking about way down the line, an obscure one.
Okay.
And Jennifer Connelly, of course, was in the Ang Lee Hulk in 2003.
You're right. No hurry to get to that one. No, a topic for another day.
Yeah. So she's an actress, and she is going to have it. She's auditioning for this movie, which we find out is the Neville Sinclair Robin Hood movie.
Yes.
Well, it's not actually Robin Hood, but it's...
My lord,
would
that you would drink of my lips as deeply.
Yes. And she doesn't get the part, but she gets a big part in the background. She's like an extra or whatever.
Yes. She's a lady in waiting. Ladies in waiting, I'm waiting.
Yes. But Cliff is jealous. He shows up on set, accidentally knocks over a false wall onto Neville Sinclair. But Neville Sinclair happens to overhear him talking about the rocket pack. And that's how he figures out that it's how Neville Dalton figures out that it's at the airfield, which is it's a big coincidence.
No. Neville already, the gangsters already knew that it was at the airfield because of Lothar's.
They didn't know who had it or anything.
That's right.
For him to overhear that through the wall because he showed up, because he was the boyfriend of an extra on set.
Well, it is very coincidental.
Yeah.
And also, this film has a hugely accelerated kind of timeline. The whole film occurs over a period of about 24 hours.
This confused the hell out of me. So, when Neville overhears this conversation, he's like, aha, I gotta get to that guy because he's got the rocket pack. Cliff Secord. But Cliff takes off somewhere. He runs away too fast, and he's like, I'll go for the girlfriend.
Yeah.
So he invites Jenny out to dinner.
Yes.
They go to a restaurant, this fancy restaurant.
The South Sea Club.
The South Sea Club. It's very Art Deco. It's lovely.
It's full of Hollywood types, like Clark Gable.
Yeah, W.C. Fields
and
actually
W.C.
shows
Fields.
up in a scene.
Doubly charmed.
Yeah. So they're in this restaurant, and then he gets called away. He's like, and it's the Paul Sorvino character that needs to talk to him. Then we cut away to a bunch of other scenes. Cliff fights some guys come to the diner. He has to fight them off. All this stuff happens. And then we cut back, and it's the date at the South East Club again. And I'm like, wait a second, this is the same night? I thought it was 3 days later or something.
No.
After all those fights in the diner, all that stuff happened. No, that was like simultaneously in another place. It was wild.
They found one another. They found they found them separately. So the mob are shaking down, trying to find Cliff and shaking him down at the same time that Sinclair is romancing Jenny. Yep. They're each going about it in their own way. Sinclair is confident that he can romance the jetpack out of Jenny and presumably have some fun doing so. And the
that seems to come later. Well, I don't know.
They're happening at the same time.
It seems like at first he was like, I just want the jetpack, and then his romantic interest in her, I don't know.
He's a sleaze.
Yes, but initially he doesn't seem physically interested in her. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. I felt like it was...
He's just trying it on because he's a sleaze.
Sure.
Because he goes, when Valentine calls him away, he goes, we're trying to find that, we know who's got your jetpack, it's this Cliff Secord guy, and Sinclair says, yeah, I know, I got his girlfriend out there.
Yeah, but he arranged to get her fired from the movie.
Before he found out.
But had he seen her physically?
No. What happened was... Why am I the one that's relating the minutiae?
I struggle
because of the accelerated timeline. What happens is, as you say, Cliff shows up at the movie set.
Yeah.
To talk to Jenny, to tell her about the jetpack.
Yes.
That's going to get things back on track for him.
Yeah.
Because they've had a big dust-up the night before.
Yeah.
When they had that fight in the diner because he's not sharing stuff with her.
Yes, and he crashed the plane and lied about it. He was
he lied by omission. He doesn't mention. Well, you're right. He did lie about it. That's how she sees it.
Yeah.
The thing is, he's not invested enough in the relationship for her.
Yeah.
You know, he's a bit of a he's a young bloke.
Yeah.
He's a bit caddish. Anyway, but he decides that his new start, and how he's going to demonstrate that he really cares about Jenny is to show up at her work and tell her about his new super secret jetpack.
Right.
So, and that's when the fake wall falls down on Sinclair.
Yeah.
And Sinclair, after extricating himself from under the wall, sits down. But before he does that, he grabs the director and says, what is going on? This is supposed to be a closed set.
Yes.
And he goes, I don't know, some guy showed up looking for Jenny Banks or whatever her name is. And then he says, whoever Jenny Banks is, she's fired.
Oh, okay, so he hasn't seen her at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I could have just said he hadn't seen her at this point instead of going through everything.
Yeah.
Anyway, then he sits down on a chair. Have we swapped roles, Kumar? Anyway, he sits down on a chair and he hears Cliff tell, and he just knows instantly. As you said, he chases him. He's left. He realizes he can still go after Jenny, which is what he does. He's already got her sacked, and apparently getting her rehired is not an option. So instead he offers to take her out to dinner and promises in a really creepy casting couch type moment that he can probably get her work and might be able to get her rehired as the daughter of the princess in the scene.
Right. So we get a so the gangsters have found a picture of Jenny in the cockpit of the plane at some stage. Sorry. So they know what the guy's girlfriend looks like. Yes. It's a clue. So there's an air show happening that day.
Yep. This has all happened before with this Is this before the confrontation at the movie theater? I think it is.
Okay, so yes,
you're right. The sequence of events is a bit confusing.
So anyway,
the first time he uses they test out the jetpack on a
mannequin or a statue. They chop down a
statue from a rival.
Okay.
Air club.
Okay.
Because it's not their air club.
Right.
They steal it because the film the camera lingers on the name of the business that they're stealing it from, and it's not them. So I figure it's maybe whatever. We're just left to draw our own conclusions. Yeah. They saw it off by the legs and they take it away. They pin it down in a field and then they attach the jetpack to it and set it off.
Yeah.
You know, it goes crazy, flies around. They think they've lost it.
Yeah.
It comes back around behind them, knocks them down and buries itself in the dirt. They pick it up and its head's completely caved in.
Yeah.
And then Cliff said, I think we need a helmet.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, that's right.
And they make the helmet. Again, I think it's made overnight again. So Peavy's working on it like mad overnight. Maybe that's when Cliff goes on his date, or maybe the date had already happened, I don't remember. But the thing is, the next morning he's late for his air show. The sleazy owner of the air show is insisting that they pay him back for the gasoline that exploded.
Yes.
And they can't, so he says that they have to revive their old act.
Right.
Which is the clown suit act.
Okay, yeah.
Which is where Cliff apparently would put on a clown outfit and go up in this rackety old plane, the one that was covered in dust, the one that the mobster hid the jetpack in.
Yes.
And that's how they find it, because they're getting ready to do their act again. Anyway, he's late, so the old, again, like in the comics, the rummy, he's an old World War One ace, but now he's very much past his prime, his hands shake.
Yeah.
He's telling the old stories, he might have dementia. He overhears Bigelow, the sleazy air show owner, saying that he's going to sack Cliff unless he shows up soon.
Yeah.
And takes it on himself to take the old thing up. And then we have, much like in the comic, the Rocketeer's first outing is to rescue the old bloke who's gone up in the plane and can't handle it. And it's a pretty good scene.
Oh, great, great. The effects are great.
Yep.
The rescue's great. I did want to mention, one of the guys that works at the airfield, at Cliff's airfield, is played by William Sanderson, who was, who we know from Blade Runner. He was.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, he's the eye guy. Not the eye guy.
No, he's the main. He's the guy that builds the robots.
That's right.
He's like the main guy.
Yeah.
He was in 4 episodes of Batman the Animated Series as a guy that made robots.
Are you serious?
And his name was Rossum.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I love that.
So he has a tiny, that was the only comic link I could find.
Reference overload there.
Yeah. But that was the only connect the dots I could find for him.
Rossum's Universal Robots.
Yeah. So, so there's this big rescue. Of course, the press are mad. They're crazy for it. They're going wild. They want more information on this guy. So Bigelow, the guy that runs the show, there's a scene which I quite disliked where they try to come up with a name for the Rocketeer.
And he looks out the window and sees Pioneer written on a billboard.
I didn't even notice that. I was just annoyed by all the names that go through. It's like
Rocket Boy.
Do you remember when we were talking about Batman? How much I liked that he said I'm Batman and the Joker said call me Joker. I like that. I don't like it where the press has to come up with the name.
Well, it's Bigelow that comes up with it. He looks out the window, sees They're asking, "What's this guy?" Because he's trying to promote him as a guy that's on his show.
Yes, that's right.
So Bigelow's like a really crooked operator because when the air show starts to go wrong, he makes everyone stay in their seats and downplays. He goes, "It's all part of the show. Everybody stay in your seats."
Yeah.
And everyone could have been killed. Anyway, so he deserves his fate, which is coming, which is to be, of course, folded in half.
Yes. There's another bit I liked here where, the next day, or when is it? He's walking around town. The newspaper headlines are about the Rocketeer, and he overhears girls talking about how they'd like to be rescued by him.
Yes.
And he enjoys the fame, which is something we don't really get that moment in the comic. Not that Cliff in the comic wouldn't be like that, but we don't have enough breathing room in the comic to have a moment where he...
There's barely any breathing room in here, but you're right, at least there is some.
Yes.
There is some sense of the passage of time.
Yes.
Even if it's only a day. Like, it's serious. I think it's about 36 hours this takes place over.
Yeah, because...
Maybe 48 hours.
Yeah, so some stages we have this date which cuts back to, and it's like, what? So when they're attacked... So while that date's happening, I think they get attacked in the diner by this guy named Spanish Johnny. I think some guys come into the diner... They're looking for Cliff. They're looking specifically for Cliff. I'm like, okay. At this point, I was like, are these the FBI or are these? And the weird thing is,
these are the mobsters.
Yes, but the thing is, it's so weird because Dalton, Neville Sinclair, and the mobsters seem to be working against each other to find the rocket pack, right? So they've split into 2 factions when they should be 1.
Yes. Well, but they're aware of it. Because they had that conversation in the South Seas Club where Valentine says, "Great, you've got his girlfriend. Bring her in here. We'll get it out of her in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I.e., torture her." And Sinclair says, "No, we'll do it my way," meaning the way where he gets to sleep with Jennifer Connelly.
Right.
And
but then later on, they're even like, and then they get a call when they're at the. When they're at the diner, when
this is all happening on the same night.
Spanish is at the diner,
You've even skipped a bit because after Bigelow gets the FBI are onto it nonetheless. They know who the Rocketeer is, and we have a scene where we know they're working with Howard Hughes.
Okay.
So there's a scene somewhere in here. It's Howard Hughes.
There's a few,
where he that
guy was on Next Gen.
Was he?
That actor.
Oh, yeah, he was. You're right.
He was on Lost for like 7 seasons or whatever, but he was on one episode of 2
This
episodes.
is the Rocketeer / Star Trek episode of comic book movie Oblivion. We have just a quick scene where it's established that he designed the jetpack, but he's not going to make any more.
Yeah.
It's already caused too much death and destruction. 2 of his men died testing it.
Yeah, and he throws the blueprints into the fire.
Yes. So there's only one. It's a great scene. Again, establishing there's only one jetpack in all the world, and Howard Hughes will not be making any more. They threaten him. The G-Man threatens him. The General threatens him. They say, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
You know? You got to do it. And he's like, can I remind you that I don't work for you.
Yeah.
You know, I work for myself. I offered you this, and all you want to do is make weapons out of it? Nah, I'm not about it. And then the General says, what should I tell the President? He says, tell him Howard Hughes says, no more, or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
And that's when we know it's Howard Hughes.
Yes.
It's a great little reference.
So...
You kind of have to know who Howard Hughes is, which, when I watched this, we haven't talked a bit, I had this film on tape when it came out.
Right, okay.
So I would have been about 10.
Okay.
11, 12. And I had no clue who Howard Hughes was.
Right, of course.
You know, I think I definitely didn't know what the hell was going on in this movie as a child.
Right.
Because when trying to remember, I haven't watched it since I was a kid, so trying to remember its plot coming into this week, I found that I could barely remember anything except for the big reveal about Sinclair.
Right.
And that amazing propaganda video that we get about halfway through. And that's just about all I can remember about it. But we've missed a bit. So we know now that the FBI are after the jetpack, because we know that Uncle Sam is after the jetpack because the generals and the G-men, they need to secure it because it's dangerous. They know that people are after it, and maybe because they want to use it, they want to turn it into something that they can use in warfare. And so the FBI show up at the airfield once night has fallen to try and find out because the Rocketeer has been seen there, and they need to find out, why. They go into Bigelow's office. Uh-oh, the place has been ransacked. They say, he needs a maid. You guys are... What do you mean he needs a maid? You guys are law enforcement. Anyway, Bigelow's been folded in half by Lothar.
Yeah.
And they look at the pad. It looks like he was writing something.
Yeah.
Detectives. And there's an imprint on the pad, and it's an address. Then there's a dissolve to that address being held in an enormous hand.
Yeah.
Great transition. That it's crunched.
Yeah.
And it's Lothar. He showed up at their house.
Yes.
And then
at Cliff's house.
Yes.
Or what Peavy is.
Cliff and Peavy are bachelors living together.
Yeah.
And he goes in and immediately starts roughing them up, asking them, where is it?
I think Peavy's there. Cliff's out somewhere, and then he shows up.
Yeah. He shows up afterwards, yeah. He runs in and, Lothar immediately starts putting his head through the ceiling and asking him where
This is all after the
engine.
first bit in the South Seas, right? We've had the first part of the day?
No, this is before.
Okay.
I think so. Or it's happening contemporaneously at the same time.
Okay.
But there's a great sequence. The FBI have also read the number off the notepad, the address off the notepad, and they've showed up in force.
Right.
There's a great scene where they call in and say, it's the FBI, come out with your hands up. And Lothar pulls 2 pistols out of his pockets and just starts unloading them at the wall, at the door.
Yeah.
And it's so badass. And then the FBI open fire, and Lothar doesn't get a scratch, but his hat is blown off his head, which he really hates. He doesn't like to lose his hat. And their house is completely trashed. It falls to pieces, it takes so much gunfire.
Yes.
Lothar grabs the blueprint. Not blueprints. Peavy has sketched.
Yes. He's made his own
Blueprints,
retroactive blueprints.
Yeah, he's sketched the design of the thing.
Yeah.
Which is a nice little Easter egg that comes up later on. Lothar grabs that because he hasn't been able to find the jetpack. He leaves. And also, there's not much of a cordon that the FBI have got going on because both Lothar and Peavy and Cliff all run away with their various prizes that they've got from the house. Lothar goes to wherever. The boys go to the club. The diner.
The diner.
Not the club. The diner.
The diner.
And that's where that next scene happens.
Okay, now this is what I was trying to get to. So
Sorry.
Johnny Spanish comes in.
Jesus. Yeah.
With a bunch of, I'm like, who are these? Which faction are they? But they find out that Jenny is Cliff's girlfriend. Because of her signatures on the wall by the phone, and it matches what's on the photo.
Yeah.
So they call up the South Seas Club somehow.
No, they just go looking.
But they call, and then they find out that Neville is at the South Seas Club with her.
Right.
They find out she's on the date with him, and I'm like, wait a second, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing.
Yeah.
Aren't these people supposed to be working with each other or whatever?
Full of mobile phones.
But then we get a cut back to the South Club. They're still on the date. And I was like, wait, this is the same. This is like at the same
these
moment.
These guys are operating. You're right. They're operating independently.
And Sorvino was having that conversation with Neville while his guys, Johnny Spanish, were roughing up the diner.
Well, those guys have been told to find Cliff Secord.
Yes.
So they just go to the club to find the girlfriend, because if they find the girlfriend, they figure they'll find Cliff. They're just showing some initiative. If they just called in to Valentine, he'd have told him, "Forget it, your mugs. We've already got her," or whatever.
Right.
But
okay.
they don't. It's all just it's just like a big comedy.
So
kind of
Cliff knows that they're going to that she's on a date with Neville at this. He finds out that she's on a date with Neville at the South Seas Club, so he goes there with the rocket pack to rescue her.
Yes.
He actually dresses as he leaves it in a corner and dresses as a
the
waiter.
only thing that can get there quick enough. You can beat the mobsters there if he takes the jetpack.
Yes, that's right. He knows.
But crucially, the jetpack has been banged up in the firefight with Lothar and the FBI.
It's been fixed with gum.
So what happens is, there was a foreshadowing moment at the very start. Secord, Cliff always puts...
A few moments, yeah.
Always puts gum on his plane before he goes aloft.
And apparently...
It's his lucky charm.
Yes.
And Peavy pulled it off before the maiden flight of the GB.
Yes.
And draw your own conclusions, because that flight ended disastrously.
Yeah,
and the next time... Peavy draws that conclusion, because just before... Cliff goes up for his first trip as the Rocketeer. Peavy puts the gum. It's not Cliff. Peavy puts the gum on the jetpack. It's a nice little moment.
Apparently, actual pilots used to be obsessed with Beeman's gum. That brand of gum was a thing that they all were into for some bizarre thing. And
Dave Stevens did his research, so I absolutely believe it.
I don't know if it's in the comics, it's certainly in the movie, so somebody looked that up and figured it out.
As I mentioned earlier, Stevens had a presence on the set, and I was going to go into it a bit later, but I can mention it briefly now, that he provided just all of his notes to the production team.
Okay.
And it's probably a part of why this film is so obsessed with the detail of the era, and maybe a little less obsessed with a plot that's easy to follow. So this is when I felt that Neville's motive was changing, that he was like, he also wanted her sexually. Yes.
Okay, so there's a big fight in the South Seas Club.
Yep.
They catch Cliff with a net, which somehow stops the rocket pack from...
This rocket pack's power is very variable.
What?
Which is a bit, it's not any worse than a Marvel movie, really.
No, that's true.
Where in one scene an energy blast can go through a wall, and the next it stuns
I just saw a great meme going around about why... So, in Endgame, Doctor Strange uses his teleporting circles to cut off somebody's hand, and he doesn't use it on Thanos' hand when he's got the glove on.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
Coming to the Facebook page, everyone. Check it out.
Yeah. So the rocket pack it just seems to stall when he's under a net for some reason.
It can push a car in one scene.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
In another scene, it just gently hovers.
Yeah.
It just needs to do what... It's magic, basically. Whatever. I absolutely don't have a problem with it. It just needs to do whatever it needs to do in the scene.
Yes. So while this is all happening, Neville, he chloroforms Jenny and takes her back to his apartment.
Where did he get that chloroform from?
Don't know.
Who knows? Doesn't matter.
He knew he was on a date with her and he might need to take her back to his house.
I love that.
And he takes her back.
That's now canon.
By the way, she's been wearing the same gown. I was going to say for days, but it's actually been a couple hours, I guess.
Yes, it has.
But, so she wakes up in his bed, and he's like, she kind of tricks him with a counter seduction, is like, let me try on this dress or whatever. She knocks him out.
I finally got a scene with Neville Sinclair.
Yes. She knocks him out. She finds a radio, and it's a radio to Berlin.
Yeah.
German
There's a
voice on
Nazi-
the other side.
there's
And
a
she finds
Nazi code book.
Nazi code book right next to it.
And she also finds PV's notes.
Yes.
His diagrams
Yes.
of the engine,
Yes.
which she shoves down her
Yes.
chest.
But then Lothar and Pete and Neville show up. He's woken up, and they capture her again.
Also, another thing, while we're nitpicking, how did she find that fake room? She just went straight to the bookshelf and started...
she saw somebody, when she woke up, she saw somebody pulling the book out and the door opening. So she saw that happen.
I missed
and
it.
then she pretended to be asleep again.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
I missed that. I must have been looking on my phone.
But, okay, then meanwhile, Cliff is taken by the FBI. He's caught at some stage by the FBI. They
Yes.
take him to Howard Hughes.
Yes.
Peavy's hanging out with Howard Hughes. How did that happen?
Well, okay. I'll tell you how.
Okay.
Now it's my turn.
Okay.
Right after the Rocketeer, right after Cliff left to go to the South Sea Club, we see a scene where Peavy is alone in the attic of the diner, and then we see a hand with a gun.
Oh.
And
Okay.
it's like, whose hand is this?
Okay.
It's an FBI.
Okay, and then the next time we see him, he's hanging out with...
Yeah.
So we've got to make a few assumptions along the way there.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Okay.
I didn't hate that because I was thinking, I wanted to know who's just leveled a gun at.
Right. I
at
just
Peavy.
completely forgot it.
Yeah.
So then Cliff's brought in. Now we get the video. We get two videos.
This is the other great thing about
okay.
this
Well,
movie.
great. You got to explain this to me because I couldn't understand what the Nazi plan was here. So the Nazis had built a prototype rocket pack. It failed and blew up its pilot. That's the first video we get.
Dave Stevens. So Howard Hughes is explaining why it's so important that they get the jetpack back.
Okay.
Because they know, and they've known all along apparently,
Mm-hmm.
that the Nazis are after it.
Okay.
And it's great. He goes, watch carefully, kid. It cost a man's life to get this out of Germany.
That line was straight out of Star Wars. What was it? Many
Bothans
many
died
Bothans
to
died.
bring us this information.
Yes.
I also thought about that.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's a sufficiently cliched line to have appeared in other films, probably. It wasn't in Casablanca.
No.
No, well, there's not much to tell. The Germans want to...
So
turn
the
it
second
into-
video, but then Howard Hughes is like, well, that was fine, but then we found this second video, and a man died to bring us this video, and it's a cartoon of all these
it's a
Nazis with
propaganda-
rocket packs.
it's a propaganda
flying over the
film.
US. So why would you be afraid of that cartoon?
Because it shows that the Germans plan to use they plan to use the jetpack
They don't have
to take over the
They
world.
don't have a working jetpack.
But they want the Howard Hughes one. They want the Rocketeer's jetpack. They want to reverse engineer it and use it. Their plan
Yes.
is to have flying troops to take over the world. And
Yes,
it's meant to
but
scare
that's-
us because it's very plainly America that they're invading. Right? You and I are not American.
Oh, I see. Because they were flying to America
They're flying
in the
over
cartoon.
they're flying
it's
over
like-
the White House. The American eagle
So,
melts,
But
and
they-
the Nazi eagle appears in its
but
place.
they knew before the second video, they knew they were trying to steal the jetpack, right? They knew the Nazis were trying to steal the jetpack.
No. This is why they're so worried about the Nazis stealing the jetpack. They know the Nazis are after it, and the proof is that they've been trying to develop their own jetpack. but
Right,
not
so
succeeding.
wait, so they already know they've been trying to develop a jetpack.
Mm-hmm.
So do they know at that stage that they would want to steal the American functioning jetpack?
Yeah, they
Yeah,
know.
so why does the second video matter? You should already be
Because
worried.
it's freaking awesome.
I don't. It doesn't add up to me that
No. It tells us, the viewers, that if the it's just
Yes, the
storytelling.
viewer- yeah, well,
it tells us that if the Germans get the jetpack,
Yes.
America is doomed.
Yes,
It's stakes.
yes,
Who cares if the Nazis steal some jetpack?
No, I get
It's
that,
the
but I'm
stakes,
saying
man.
that it doesn't make sense for Howard Hughes to be worried about the second video. He'd be worried about the first video and the knowledge that they're trying to steal the jetpack before they ever see the second video. It's like if
The first video is reassuring. No. The first video is reassuring because the Germans can't develop a jetpack themselves.
yeah.
When they try, it blows up. The only way that the Germans can get the technology to make flying soldiers and invade the US is if they get Howard Hughes' jetpack. That's the stakes.
Great. Okay, let's say I had a gun, an empty gun, and I said, I'm going to shoot you. And you're like, you've got no bullets. And I was like, well, I'm going to buy bullets. You would be like, holy shit, I better get out here before this guy buys bullets. You wouldn't wait until I drew a cartoon of me shooting you and showed you that, and you'd be like, oh my god, this guy was shooting me. I've already said I want to shoot you. I've already got the gun. I've already said I'm going to get bullets. The Nazis already have building a prototype. They're already saying that
they can't build a prototype. They can't.
They build a failing prototype.
Yeah.
They've got an empty gun. They're building a...
They got a gun that doesn't work.
Exactly. So
they're going to steal your gun and copy it 1,000 times.
But don't you know that they're going to... Don't you know that they might try to steal your gun before they have to make a cartoon of it, and then you're like, oh my god, they're going to try to steal it.
This nitpicking I find baffling, right? It's just... it's a great piece of storytelling that communicates the stakes to us very clearly. It's not Howard Hughes saying...
Maybe the problem is I read the comic and I already knew the stakes, that the Nazis wanted the jetpack.
No, we know the Nazis want the jetpack. Well, we didn't, but we know now. But, Howard, this scene could have gone differently, I suppose. Howard Hughes could have sat Cliff down at a table and said, here's the straight dope, kid. The Nazis want that jetpack. You know why they want it? Because they're going to equip an army of flying soldiers. And those flying soldiers are going to descend on America like a horde of locusts. And freedom will be dead forever. That would have been lame. Instead, we get this rad film, which is the thing that lives in my mind from when I was 10 years old.
Yes.
It's brilliant. Like, they look so... It's period appropriate. It's got the great brass band going in the background. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. They take off one by one. They're swarming through the skies. The White House is in flames. The American eagle melts. The Nazi eagle rises from the ashes like a phoenix to take over the land. And then it says in German, first Europe, tomorrow the world.
Okay, so you've sold me... I think the key point is them going for the world and the U.S. specifically, because this is before the U.S. enters the war.
Yeah.
Okay, so that... Now it's
all
making
that's
a
standing
bit more...
between the Nazis and world domination is them not being able to get this jetpack.
Okay, I'm somewhat...
This is
shifted.
I hope everyone's enjoyed the last 10 minutes. What do we at?
So then Cliff's like, well, you got to let me use the jetpack one last time to rescue Jenny because she's been captured. He goes over there.
No, you missed it. Okay, sorry, I got to go here.
Right.
I apologise, Kumar. This will be very quick. They're not going to let him go.
That's right, yeah.
He punches the same guy in the face.
Oh, right,
again.
that's right. He escapes, yeah.
But how he escapes is great. Okay, there's a model plane hanging in Howard Hughes' enormous kind of like office space.
Test hangar, yeah.
Yeah, the model plane. He grabs it and sort of hang glides out away, out through the main doors and out onto the street, and then runs off. And Howard Hughes says, "What do you know? The son of a bitch will fly."
Yeah.
Now, this is a reference. This is an historical reference. Mm-hmm. This plane is the Spruce Goose.
Oh, okay.
So, the Spruce Goose, or the X4 or X2 Hercules, H4 Hercules, is pretty much the largest plane ever built.
Yeah, the huge one, yeah.
Yeah. Made out of wood.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
Out of birch, to be exact. Ridiculed in the press as the Spruce Goose, because it was figured that this plane would never fly. I think it's still the largest plane that's ever... It flew one test flight in 1947. Howard Hughes himself flew it. Howard Hughes is a record-setting pilot.
Yeah.
So, but of course, this was often mocked like this as a kind of like white elephant that was never going to get off the ground. So this is anachronistic because the thing didn't even... It was a wartime project, so it wasn't...
It's a prototype. It's a mini one. It's a mini one in his hangar.
Yeah, well, the year's wrong. It's 1938, and
sure, he was working on it, and he wasn't. He didn't have the full size one.
Have we swapped roles again?
Yes,
absolutely. What is going on? Anyway, I love this little scene. Really, just like a nice little detail.
Right. Okay. So Cliff escapes. He gets to Neville's house. Neville is finally revealed as a Nazi. Uniformed Nazis jump out of the bushes.
Yeah.
You'd think they would maybe leave the uniforms off or something while they were incognito in the United States of America. But
that's a funny scene.
The gangsters are there. The FBI shows up. Gangsters and FBI end up on the... Once they find out that he's a Nazi, they're like...
I may not make an honest buck, but I'm 100% American.
Yeah.
I don't work with no 2-bit Nazi.
Yeah, so Paul Sorvino ends up joining forces with the FBI. There's a funny moment where they look at each other like...
And nod.
Yes, like, okay, we're doing this. Meanwhile, a big airship, Zeppelin shows up. Was that hydrogen? Was that...
It absolutely was. And
But wasn't this... Wait, what was the Hindenburg... Wasn't it? It was supposed to not be hydrogen, though, right?
I don't know. It was hydrogen. So
no, it was hydrogen, but it was supposed to not be, because, and that's the reason it burned up. Was
no, they were hydrogen zeppelins. Hydrogen is lighter and cheaper than helium.
Okay.
And was being used. You know, the Nazis, Germany would send these zeppelins around the world, including to America, on these kind of goodwill missions to show the amazing amazing German technology. So this is not the Hindenburg; it's called something else.
Yeah.
I forget what. But it's one of these Zeppelins.
Okay.
These Zeppelins were stopped being made and used because of the Hindenburg disaster.
Yeah.
Which occurred in America. It was in New Jersey where it...
Right.
And that's where we get the expression, "Oh, the humanity" from.
I thought they were supposed to be filled with helium. And
No. Helium is what they're filled with now because of the Hindenburg.
Okay, I gotcha.
So again, this is a nice little nod to history. The Nazis really did send Zeppelins to America to overfly it.
So, but this one is there specifically to extract Neville and the rocket pack.
And it presumably dropped off the troops. Because I remember watching...
Yes.
Because I remember watching it and thinking, why if Neville had access to Nazi troops on American soil, why is he stuffing around with gangsters?
Yeah,
But they've just come down with the Zeppelin
This
at the last
is another thing like the gun pointing at Peavy that's just not... We need more...
It's a very accelerated timeline. I completely agree. We're really rushing through stuff.
So there's a big fight over the Zeppelin, on the Zeppelin, of course, where
Lothar comes out again.
Lothar comes out. He's hooked himself up to the roof. The fight's a bit weird. There's a moment where Neville punches Cliff, and he just reels back, and I'm like, Cliff, move out of the way or something, or...
The action's not real great. It's meant to be a shocking moment, because Cliff punches Neville and says, "Where's your stuntman now?" Neville picks himself up and winds up, as you say, very obviously, and then clobbers him across the room and says, "I do my own stunts."
Should have been really fast punch for that to make sense.
You know, this isn't Extraction.
No.
Hyperkinetic action. This is early 90s.
Yes. So, anyway, there's a huge fight, and Neville gets the rocket pack, but it has been damaged and jury-rigged with that chewed-up gum that Peavy stuck in there, which Cliff takes off before giving him the rocket pack, and so it catches on fire. It's probably the one bad special effect in the movie is him
doesn't look great,
falling to his death while he's on fire.
I'll miss Hollywood.
I was a bit surprised by the gun violence and the general violence in this for a Disney picture. In general,
I assume it's PG-13 because in the wake of Batman, PG-13 is the new
was
the
Batman
money making.
PG-13?
It was the did I not mention it? It was one of those. It was on that list of 9 ways Batman changed the world.
Okay,
the rise of the PG-13 rating.
Okay.
Anyway, as you say, there's quite a bit of violence. That big fireball, it's not great, but he crashes into the Hollywood land sign and destroys the land
and
park.
turns it into Hollywood.
There's another fun line where Neville says, "I'll miss Hollywood," and Cliff says, "I don't think you will," because he crashes into it.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the next day, Howard Hughes shows up with the plane as a gift for Cliff.
There's a great bit where he's already leaving, and then a guy he left behind rips off a kind of like a sticker to reveal pilot Cliff Secord underneath. And I just imagine the instructions that Howard Hughes gave to the guys, like, okay, you're going to leave this sticker on.
Wait till I drive away.
Then it's going to look so cool.
The rocket pack plans, the ones that Peavy drawn, Jenny still has them.
That's right. So we have a sequel hook.
Yeah. So, because I was actually shocked. I was like, at the end of the movie, I was like, whoa, they've closed the door to any sequels? That's weird.
No, big sequel.
No, there was the last moment she pulls out the...
I like the ending. I like it. We're back where we started, except, so we've returned to the beginning. But things are improved. They have a nice new plane.
Yeah.
Cliff has mended his relationship with Jenny. He's serious with her now. But and look, we have a hint of the future because
Right.
Jenny reveals the plans that she
Right.
smuggled from. She took out of Neville Sinclair's secret Nazi room.
Right.
Great, perfect, great ending.
Okay. What's your trivia for this one?
Oh, I have heaps. Okay. So first of all, I'll talk about the budget.
Yep.
So this film cost about 40 million.
Okay.
Not including marketing.
Okay.
Made at the box office 46.7 million.
Okay.
And that's considered a flop.
Yeah, sure, because it would have been another 40 million in marketing probably or something.
Yeah, I'm
like
sure.
that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It was promoted quite heavily, but
Yeah.
for whatever reason, this film didn't do well.
I never saw it before. I had seen the
Right.
commercials for it. I saw lots of commercials for it, but somehow I just never got around to seeing it
Okay.
then or since until this week.
Interesting. I don't really understand why it didn't do well. I know that it's not a perfect movie.
You know what? It's really reminds me of John Carter of Mars. Or John Carter.
Right.
Because that's another Disney thing, which was a retro thing that seems to maybe they screwed up the marketing of it or something. But now, 10 years later, I still hear people say John Carter was a good movie. I'm not sure if it is. I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it
But
either.
it sounds like exactly like The Rocketeer. Like it just seems like the same. Like even the style of the property and everything.
Yeah, but we have seen this film, and I think so. There were a few positive. It was mixed reviews. There were positive reviews and negative reviews.
Yeah.
The positive reviews tended to like a lot of the stuff that we've liked.
Yeah.
You know, the aesthetic, the pretty decent effects, the score, some of the humor. The negative reviews tended to say that it feels a bit empty.
Okay.
Or it feels a bit neutered.
Okay.
So that it's been kind of simplified or made a little bit more.
No, I think it's more complex than the comic. I mean, I like Jenny more than I like Betty. You know what I mean? I think.
Yeah, well, she's a more complicated character. I mean, she has far more agency than Betty in the comic.
Yeah,
I
absolutely,
agree.
Yeah.
I just want to quickly mention the poster.
Yeah.
Now, this film has such an iconic movie poster.
Yeah.
It's just wonderful. It's so abstract.
Yeah.
The Rocketeer's body is dissolving away. Wonderful Art Deco font, and of course the amazing outfit, the helmet. So regarding the helmet, apparently they had to fight for the helmet. Can you imagine the Rocketeer without his helmet? But
You mean the total helmet or the design of the helmet?
the design of the helmet?
Okay.
So Dave Stevens said, I remember the helmet was a problem. Disney wanted to change it completely.
Wow.
Michael Eisner wanted a NASA-style astronaut helmet.
Whoa.
They wanted to update the whole thing in the beginning, apparently. And this is a quote, but fortunately for all of us, Joe told them that if they changed the helmet at all, then it was no longer the Rocketeer, and he would not be interested in directing. He really stuck to his guns.
Wow.
They acquiesced and tried to generate a couple of prototype helmets on their own, and everyone thought they looked terrible.
Yeah.
So Stevens, in another example of his input into the film, told Joe, look, let me get with my sculptor, give us a week, and I promise I'll come up with something you can shoot. So they took a cast of the stunt actor's head,
Right.
and they designed the helmet, and it looks exactly like the comics.
Wow.
Apparently, when Disney was trying to figure out why the film wasn't doing good, along with changing it to Touchstone for the overseas release, they got rid of that poster
Okay, got
and
it.
replaced
Yeah.
it with
Yeah.
a more conventional one with the floating heads.
Yeah.
So you could see all the various actors and so
Yeah.
on and so forth. That's less abstract and less interesting. But I think it was probably a bit too late by then.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'll post the poster on the Facebook
Okay.
page because it is well worth a look. Other than that, we could talk a little bit about its life after its death.
Okay.
Talking about, so originally, the film was envisioned as a trilogy.
Oh,
So
that's ambitious
Yeah.
for that time.
Yeah. They wanted to. Indiana Jones as well as Batman was an inspiration for how this film got made.
Right.
Both Bill Campbell and Jennifer Connelly were contracted for sequels
Okay.
originally, but obviously that didn't happen because the film didn't take off.
Yeah.
And since says it's although it's developed a cult following since then.
Much like John Carter. Yeah.
Right, so I don't know anything about John Carter. It's a shame it's not based on a comic.
Yeah.
But this, there's been, ever since it sort of has become a bit of a cult film on the cult film circuit, there's been talk about a revival since at least 2012. And in 2016, it was confirmed that Disney was planning a reboot/sequel, which is
Okay.
very much the rage, with a new Rocketeer that was going to take place
Okay.
6 weeks after the first... So 6 years after the first film.
Okay.
So, Billy Campbell was going to be off fighting in the Second World War,
Oh.
and someone else needs to pick up. Apparently, the Rocketeer was going to get the Liet Kynes treatment,
Right.
and she was going to be a woman of color.
Okay.
However, since then, it's gone through various drafts.
But I think isn't there a kids cartoon on Disney Channel?
Yes, there
with
is. I was going to get to that,
Okay.
but yes, there is. There is. I'll just finish talking about the film.
Sure.
It's gone through various... It's been rewritten. The there's a few drafts floating around, and it's moved from producer to producer. In 2021, it's been announced again. It's going to be called The Return of the Rocketeer.
Okay.
It's going to be a Disney Plus exclusive.
Okay.
And David Oyelowo, who is... don't think he's done any comic book movies, but he's a British actor. He's producing, along with his wife,
Okay.
and he may star
Okay.
as a retired Tuskegee Airman. So he was in like Red Tails, and and I think he actually played a Tuskegee Airman in Red Tails.
Okay.
And so that's a George Lucas film about the black airmen of
Yeah,
the Second
yeah.
World War. So he's going to be a retired Tuskegee Airman who is forced to take up the mantle of the Rocketeer at some point
Okay.
in the presumably post-war period. So well, I'll be interested to see that when it comes out. Also, as you mentioned, there was an animated series came out in 2019. Apparently got good reviews, but was cancelled after one season. It had
It's not Cliff. It's some little girl
No,
or something in it, right?
No, you're right. Yes, Cliff is not in it. It's I think a member of his family.
Okay.
She's his granddaughter or something.
Okay.
But it's been moved away from Los Angeles or wherever it's to a fictional town called Hughesville,
Okay.
named after Howard Hughes.
Oh, right. Okay.
And Billy Campbell's voice is in it. He plays the
Oh, okay.
Rocketeer girl's father, but not as Cliff's Secord, as another character.
Okay.
But nonetheless, he's there. So there's a few references to the film in this animated series. Yeah.
Okay.
That's just about me for trivia.
Okay. Shall we rate this thing?
Absolutely.
All right. Comic. I'm going to say yay. I'm going to go... I was yay a long time ago, but I'm going to go with slightly higher yay. As I said before, I liked it a bit more. This time I didn't find it as stiff. And I didn't mind the empty calories so much because a comic doesn't have to have calories necessarily. It can be about the visuals too and the period richness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
I'm also going to say yay.
Okay.
For similar reasons. I think one thing that I found interesting, when I picked it up, I thought for a minute that you'd sent me the wrong comic.
right.
Because it just looked so modern. It didn't look like a comic from the 80s. Now, I understand it's been recolored.
Yeah.
But in terms of its style, it looked really kind of ahead of its time, really.
Right.
It looked like it could have been published in the last 10 years, which is interesting. And I was wondering why I was thinking that. And I found in an obituary that I read for Dave Stevens, I found that someone had written a little bit about this, and I'll read a little bit from this. It said, which was that Stevens, they felt, had been an underappreciated influence on comics as they've developed over the decades since he published The Rocketeer. So, like many of the they refer to comic book artists as cartoonists for some reason in this obituary. Like many of the cartoonists to come, Stevens would create a number of standalone covers to comics not his own,
Yeah.
which became it's the norm now, right? And is in direct charge of his own career outside of comics, and even in terms of developing his own projects for Hollywood, because he was the one that he sold the film, as you said, in 1983 to producers. So he almost straight away. And in the interview that I read, he sort of always imagined it being a film, from day one. As an artist, Stevens seemed a model of cartoonists again to come. A number of mainstream comics artists since his heyday have adopted a narrative approach that is reminiscent of his ability to mix animation-derived action with illustration-style pin-up moments.
I talked about this in that episode very specifically.
Excellent.
10 years ago. There's a page where it's in New York, and you see Betty standing, and she's like the full page, the full length
Yes.
page, and the panels are all
Yes.
side. That's been copied by so many artists.
Yeah.
It might have been done before Dave Stevens, probably by Steranko or someone, I'm guessing, but I feel like I've seen that 100 times since, and it's usually like a sexy woman, like that figure going down one side, and then the panels to the side. It's a way to really be pervy about it, is to make her the full page.
Yeah.
So,
But it's not just him. There's the one with Lothar as well, when he's stepping out of the crowd
Yes.
to go up to the...
Yes.
And that, it felt, as you say, I think it's been imitated, right?
yeah.
Or it's become the norm. And I think that's why it felt so much like I was reading something that recent rather than something old.
Right.
So, to finish up, you know, it wasn't hard at the time to imagine a quarter century of these comics ahead of Stevens waiting to be read, or an industry that would transform itself based in part on the type of creative effort that Stevens represented. So I think, to all the reasons that you outlined, I would also add, if you want to see the germ of the future, you can have a go back and have a look at this comic, because and it was very popular in its day, I understand.
Yeah, I was certainly very aware of it. I never read it, but everybody knew what it was. There was
Right.
nobody that didn't know what the Rocketeer was. It was really,
Whereas I mean,
the visuals are really, I mean, the helmet and everything was so recognizable. Okay, what about the movie?
oh yeah,
You said yay at the beginning, right?
yeah, oh yeah.
I have to go nay on this. You almost
no!
you almost flipped me to yay, and it's not a bad nay. It's just I could go either way. I could say it's a very conditional yay,
Okay.
or it's a conditional nay.
Fair
And I
enough.
just felt like it was so well produced, but somehow it just didn't add up to. It just did. I think I didn't watch it. I think I should have watched it when it came out, closer to that nostalgia zone, or when I was at a younger age and could have appreciated it more. Somehow, it didn't add up to anything. Well, I mean, that's what I'm praising the comic for. I said yay to the comic even though it didn't
What
add
we
up
need
to
to
anything.
do is redo this podcast in 5 years, and by then
Yeah.
you'll have come around to yay.
That might be true, actually. I might, my opinion might change on it. But
no.
I actually really wanted to like it, and I came in and I was like, I knew it had didn't do well financially, but I came into it and I was like, well, I bet it's really good. I bet it's like John Carter, and I'm gonna really like this. And I really tried to, and I was really enjoying the production side of it, but somehow the story just didn't. I was having trouble being excited about it from
Understandable.
moment to moment.
And as you said, there was the story, this accelerated timeline,
Yeah.
and there are too many scenes that end on a mystery or a cliffhanger, where we're invited to kind of figure out how they link to a scene several scenes later. I mean, I didn't mind that, but I can see how it could be infuriating and confusing. Absolutely. As for me, as I already said at the start, I really enjoyed this movie.
Good.
I enjoyed it a lot.
Great.
A lot. I was laughing all the way through. I loved Lothar. I loved that propaganda film. I definitely, there are things that are not great about it. There's some inconsistencies, much like there were inconsistencies in the comic.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean an A.
No.
Yeah.
I'm really
Ever. Yeah. No,
stronger yay than Batman, I reckon.
Yeah.
I like this movie more than I like Batman.
Okay.
I really like it. I
Okay.
really like it a lot.
Okay.
What about adaptation?
I'm going hard yay on this one. I think it's really close to the comic. I think it's very close to the spirit of the comic and what the comic was trying to do. All the details are in there. I think it's cleaned up some plot trouble that
Yes.
the comic had. I think it's fixed up Betty by turning her into Jenny. All sorts of stuff like that. I think it really works very well, and I think Dave Stevens must have been happy with it.
He was 70% happy with it.
Okay.
He's been on the record as saying.
Okay.
Yeah. He said, so in this interview that I found from 2001, they asked him, it said, you said something one doesn't often hear from people who have had their properties made into film, and that you were satisfied with 70% of the film. To which Dave replied, yeah, definitely. That whole first flight sequence where he rescues Malcolm was right out of the comic.
Yeah.
And what Joe did with it, the director, was breathtaking. I was so proud. And the overall spirit and sweetness of the series is still there, intact. I thought the casting choices were excellent.
Yep.
They gave great life to those characters. And to his credit, Joe did not fill out the cast with a bunch of 90210 kids.
Yeah.
Barbie and Ken types.
Yeah.
Billy Campbell is a good-looking guy,
Yeah.
but he also happens to be Cliff.
Yeah.
I would never have cast him based on good looks alone. So modest. But he came into the audition and just nailed it shut. He was made for it. The part was him. And so the idea that so as you've said, like it's a very solid adaptation in various ways. It keeps what's important from the comic. It trims some stuff that's less important. It tightens up the script. It carries over some key moments, and it carries over the sensibility that's present throughout it all.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff, the nostalgia and the cheeky references.
Yeah.
So it takes out some of the bizarre ones like the Shadow and I suppose.
Well, so leaves in Rando Hatton.
Yeah,
you know,
but leaves in some like Howard Hughes it leaves in some like Hatton.
Yeah.
It beefs up others like Howard Hughes.
Yeah, yeah.
And it substitutes some like the Errol Flynn Timothy Dalton character.
Yes.
It's just this is possibly the best at least one of the best adaptations I think we've had so far.
Yeah, in terms of being close to the spirit and the content, yeah, absolutely. Really close. Okay, so we're ready to move on to next week. Speaking of nostalgia, so we're going to look at the 1972 Tales from the Crypt.
Great.
And there were 2 in that series. There's also a Vault of Horror, but anyway, we haven't touched the 70s in a very long time.
No, it was only Friday Foster, our very first episode, and
Lone Wolf and Cub.
Lone Wolf and Cub.
Yeah. So it's time to dip back.